It was 10 o'clock at night. I was getting ready for bed like usual, but little did I know that this was about to be one of the worst nights of sleep of my life. I laid in bed all night, tossed and turned. I didn't get to sleep until about 2 a.m. Coincidentally, this was also the last day of my 1 meal a day challenge. Without any idea of what to do next, I struggled to figure out what my next 30-day challenge would be, and then that morning, it hit me. I was gonna do 30 days of no screens in bed. You see, I have a really bad habit of watching YouTube while in bed. Ever since high school, I've kind of developed this habit of, well, it's bedtime, I'll hop in bed, throw on YouTube, and just kind of fall asleep to it. And it's been what I've done for the past 5 or 6 years. And I haven't really had too hard of a time falling asleep, but I've never been a person that could just lay in bed and fall asleep in 10 minutes, like some people are gifted and lucky enough to do. So I decided to do this with one goal in mind, and that was to actually get a fucking good night's sleep for once. So I had the plan all laid out. I would not use any screens in bed, and that plan lasted for about 0 seconds. Not because I failed, but because I had a better idea, at least I thought, which would be, what if instead of no screens in bed, I did no screens an hour before bed? Because I've heard that helps people get to sleep, and why not? It's just an extra part to this whole challenge. So the first day came and went, and how did it go? Well, by about 9 o'clock, I decided this is a good time. I usually get to bed at 10. Why not give myself an hour before going to sleep with no screens? So I turn off my computer, I head upstairs, I put on some podcast, and I lay down, listen to this podcast for about an hour, and I fell asleep while listening to it, probably after about 30 minutes. And I remember waking up, it was probably about 10:15-ish or so, and I went downstairs and got in bed and had a really good sleep. And I thought to myself, wow, this worked really well. I was not expecting it to work this well. But it was only the first day, and of course I fell asleep during the 1 hour that I was supposed to be awake, not doing something with screens. So I figured maybe an hour is too long. How about I try 30 minutes instead? So the next day, about 9:30 rolls around, and I go upstairs, I turn on a podcast, lay down, listen to the podcast for 30 minutes, and then 10 o'clock hits. I go downstairs to my bedroom, I get in bed, and I couldn't really fall asleep. So 30 minutes, maybe not long enough. Maybe I should go back to an hour. So I was kind of indecisive about my time, but I decided to stick with 1 hour as the allotted amount of time where I would not use any screens before bedtime. So all of the first week, I do the same thing. 9 o'clock rolls around, I turn off my computer or whatever I was doing at the time. I go upstairs to my living room, turn on a podcast, lay on the couch, listen to it for an hour. I think I fell asleep one other time, but besides that, I usually sat through it the whole hour, went down to bed, laid in bed, and fell asleep. And it was going okay. It wasn't that bad. And the first week was over, and I thought to myself, why don't I do a different thing every week? I've got 4 weeks of doing this. So the first week, I listened to all podcasts, and I thought, how about I read a book? Because people say reading books before going to bed helps them fall asleep. How about I try Sudokus before bed? Something that stimulates the mind and gets me thinking. I'll see if that keeps me up longer because I was actively thinking about something, or if it helps me just kind of wind down and go to sleep. And then for the fourth week, I don't know, I didn't really have anything in mind, so I said a puzzle. Why not? Because I haven't done a puzzle in a long time, and that sounded like fun. So that was my idea. I would listen to podcasts, read, I would do Sudokus, and then a puzzle or something, I don't know. And then the second week came around, and well, I did not have a book to read. I actually have a whole stack of books that I could read, but I was waiting for a book to come in because I had a friend recommend to me The Martian. So I ordered it with a gift card that I had left over from last year's Christmas to Barnes & Noble, if that says anything about how much I read. And the book took about 5 or 6 days to come in. So while I waited for that book to come in, I just continued listening to podcasts. One thing that did get in the way during this 1 month challenge was sometimes I just wasn't at home all night. Sometimes I would go out to my friend's house. Like specifically, I remember during a Saturday, I started playing D&D with my friends. We started doing a bi-weekly D&D thing, and it just so happened to be that the second Saturday of this challenge was D&D. It was just kind of annoying to me because we had our character sheets on our phones, and there was a TV running and all this stuff. I just couldn't really escape the screens, and it was kind of annoying me because that's what this whole challenge was about, was not using any screens before going to bed. So I left early. I just told everyone like, yo, my character pieces out back to the guild and falls asleep, and I'm going home. And they were all okay with it. They were cool. So I'm driving home from my friend's house. Today's not the first day that I've realized this, but man, I learned that it can be pretty difficult to get away from screens an hour before bed. I mean, even right now, I have to use my phone to record this, but obviously I'm not looking at my phone because I'm driving. But as you can see, it's about 9:40. I like to try to get in bed at 10. We were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and we had the TV on, it was playing music, and I had to use my phone as my character sheet. And there's just too many things that were really like getting in the way from trying to be as disconnected from technology and screens as possible. It can be really hard to get away from technology, especially if you're not at home doing your own thing, since it is so prevalent in like everything we do. And I don't know, I just didn't, that was the first and only time that I really felt annoyed by screens come nighttime. And I don't know if it was because I was getting used to falling asleep without screens and not using them before bed, and I was really enjoying that time, or if it was just something in me that was just annoyed that day and I just kind of wasn't feeling it. So I don't know, but that was a little annoying. But luckily, the next day redeemed that because my book came in. All right, it is 8:58, about 2 minutes from the time that it is to get off screens. So I'm shutting down, getting off for tonight. We are about a week in finally, and it is finally time for me to start reading. I've got The Martian right here, recommended to me by my friend. This whole time leading up to this, I've been doing podcasts. I've really enjoyed it, but now it is time to get on to reading. So let's see how this goes. So reading that book, it was great. To say the least, it was great. I really liked the book. Everyone always tells themselves that, oh, I don't have time to read. I would start reading, but you know, I'm too busy doing other things. And if you really sit down and look at it, what are you doing? Realistically, I was doing nothing before bed. I was watching YouTube or Twitch or something. And just dedicating that 1 hour to sit down and read really sparked my love for literature that I kind of buried away throughout high school and middle school, because, you know, we're forced to read books that are actually pretty good, but at the time we don't really want to fuck with, and it's just, it makes you really hate reading. But if you take your own time to read and you sit down and find a book that you actually do enjoy, I personally, at least, found that reading is really fun, and I want to continue doing it, and I will continue doing it. But yes, reading, it was great. I really enjoyed it. I actually finished that book in about 6 days. So yeah, the book was, to say the least, really good. I would highly recommend it. So it's the third week, and Sudoku puzzles. I didn't do them. I didn't want to do Sudoku on my phone or anything. I wanted to get a Sudoku book because I don't get, the only other place I know to get one is newspapers, and I don't get newspapers delivered to my apartment. So I wanted to get a book, but I couldn't find one, and realistically didn't really put that much effort into getting one. So I went back to listening to podcasts. It was okay. I probably did about 2 or 3 days of listening to podcasts, but realistically, I just kind of wanted to read. And then we eventually got to the 4th week, and that's where this whole challenge kind of took a turn for me. It is officially 9 o'clock. I have about a week left of this, and I've decided that I'm just gonna keep using screens for the last week, but not use them in bed. This was my original plan. I'm here playing Breath of the Wild. Love this game. This was my original plan, and I think it's what I want to do for the last week because I don't really know what else to do. The 4th week just so happened to be election week. And originally I had this plan of podcast, reading, Sudoku, and then something else I didn't really know. Puzzles, I guess. And then I told myself, why not just use screens all the way up till bed and then do my original plan of not using them in bed. So that's what I did because I wanted to keep up with all the election news. I still went to bed at 10 o'clock. I didn't want to I didn't want to, not really cheat it, but I didn't want to stay up past 10 because I've been setting myself this hard time of 10 o'clock every night, get in bed. I didn't want to mess up that consistency, so I stuck with going to bed at 10, but I would use screens all the way up until then to watch news or whatever. And it was actually not that bad the first day. I got to bed pretty easily, fell asleep, slept pretty well throughout the night, and honestly didn't really notice too much of a difference throughout the week. I still felt like I was going to bed and like the same pace when I would get to sleep. Like it would take me 15-20 minutes to get to sleep, and then using screens all the way up to bed, it would still take me about 15 to 20 minutes. So I didn't really notice any difference there, which was kind of surprising to me. After a few days, the election news kind of slowed down, and I actually ended up picking up another book to read. Really enjoyed that book, and that's what I did for the last couple of days for this challenge. And then it was the last night, day 30. So the last night's sleep kind of sucked, but I don't think that's any fault to screens. I think it's just kind of, I had a bad night's sleep, I guess. Sometimes it just doesn't work out and you just have a bad sleep. And maybe that's what happened before I started this challenge. Maybe I just had a bad sleep and this was all for nothing. But I did actually enjoy sleeping with no screens on or anything like that. One thing that I did find though was that it can get kind of hard to fall asleep when there's absolutely nothing going on. Like you lay in bed and you think to yourself, okay, it's time to go to sleep. And then your brain just goes and goes and goes and goes and you can't fall asleep. People have different tricks for this. Some people say, try to stay up for as long as you can and like tell yourself, I'm gonna stay up as long as possible. Or some people say, I'm just resting. I'm not actually getting sleep, and then they end up falling asleep. What I found actually helped for me was I would put on a podcast to fall asleep to, which I guess is kind of like putting on YouTube, but I didn't have that bright screen blaring in my face, and I just had this nice podcast, really low level so that I could still kind of hear it, but I wasn't focusing on it too much, and that really helped me get to sleep because it let my mind think about something else instead of constantly thinking about what I want to do the next day, what I could have done different this day, what I should have done, and just all these different ideas that I had going on in my head that just completely prevented me from actually getting good sleep. So overall, I did enjoy it. I don't think I'm gonna continue stopping an hour before bed, but I'm not gonna watch YouTube or like TV in bed anymore. It's an awful habit that I've had all my life and I really want to break it. And as long as I have something else going on in the background, whether it be I've considered getting like a white noise machine, but right now for podcasts, I do really enjoy that. And that's about it. Pretty simple challenge this month. There's not really too much to talk about. So I don't have much else to say. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you drop it a like. I'm working on my next 30-day challenge and I hope to see you guys next time.